She gave her umbrella to a confused stranger in the Vancouver afternoon rain. The man couldn't remember where he was going, couldn't recall his own password. He stood there in his expensive suit, looking lost and afraid, and something in Brielle wouldn't let her just walk past. She bought him hot chocolate with money she'd been saving for dinner, sat with him until his assistant found him, never asked for anything in return. 3 days later, he wanted to see her again. In 72 hours, a single envelope will force Brielle to choose between the anger she's earned and the forgiveness everyone says she owes. But first, she needs to understand who this confused stranger really is. When they met at a quiet cafe, he slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a shocking revelation that changed everything. The stranger wasn't a stranger at all, but who he was, and why he'd been searching for her, and what he knew about the mother who'd raised her alone, would unravel everything Brielle thought she knew about her life. Some acts of kindness open doors. Others open wounds that never properly healed. The umbrella was just the beginning, because what comes next isn't just a story about a student and a strange man soaked under the rain. This is about whether forgiveness is something you give because someone earns it, or because holding on to anger costs more than letting it go. The November rain in Vancouver came down like it had a personal vendetta against anyone foolish enough to be outside. 22-year-old Brielle Costas stood under the deck roof of a closed pharmacy on Jack Uppel Street, watching the storm turn the city into a watercolor painting of grays and blues. She was already running late for her overnight shift at the hospital cafeteria, already drenched from the waist down, and the small yellow umbrella she clutched was barely holding together after 3 years of hard use. Brielle was a senior at Vancouver Pacific University, cobbling together an education in nursing through a combination of financial aid, 3 part-time jobs, and sheer stubborn determination. Her mother, Samantha, had raised her alone in a cramped studio apartment in the Central District, working double shifts as a hotel housekeeper to keep them afloat. Samantha never talked about Brielle's father except to say he'd disappeared before Brielle was born, leaving them with nothing but questions and an empty space where a family should have been. Through the curtain of rain, Brielle noticed him, an older man, probably in his late 50s, standing motionless in the downpour without any protection whatsoever. He wore what looked like an expensive charcoal suit, now completely soaked, and he seemed utterly lost, turning slowly in place as if the world around him had suddenly become unfamiliar. People hurried past him, umbrellas bobbing, everyone wrapped up in their own urgency. Nobody stopped, but something about the way he stood there, so still and confused in the chaos of the storm, pulled at something deep in Brielle's chest. She'd spent her whole life watching her mother extend kindness to people who had nothing to give in return. It was a lesson learned not through words but through action. When you can help, you help. Simple as that. Brielle stepped out from her shelter and walked over to the man, holding her small umbrella over both of them. It was barely big enough for one person, let alone 2, but she angled it so most of the coverage went to him. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently. "Are you all right? Do you need help getting somewhere?" The man looked at her with startling gray-blue eyes that seemed both vacant and deeply troubled. Up close, she could see he was well-groomed despite being soaked. His silver hair was neatly trimmed, his suit custom-tailored, and there was something refined about his features. But confusion clouded his expression like fog. He started, then stopped, his brow furrowed. "I'm not certain where I am. I was supposed to meet someone, but I can't recall who or where." Brielle's concern deepened. This wasn't just someone caught in the rain. Something was wrong. "Do you have a phone? Maybe I can help you call someone." He patted his pockets and retrieved an expensive smartphone. But when he looked at the screen, fresh bewilderment crossed his face. The password. I can't remember it." A car splashed past, sending up a wave that soaked Brielle's legs even more. She didn't flinch. "What's your name, sir?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. The confusion in his eyes deepened into something that looked like fear. I should know that. Why can't I remember?" Brielle's nursing training kicked in immediately. Disorientation, memory loss, well-dressed but wandering in the rain. This could be a medical emergency. Stroke, dementia episode, head injury. She needed to get him somewhere safe. "It's okay," she said, keeping her voice calm and reassuring. "Let's get you out of the rain first. Can you walk with me? There's a coffee shop just down the block." The man nodded slowly, looking at her with an expression of such relief and gratitude that it made her heart ache. She kept the umbrella over him as they walked, getting even more soaked herself in the process. Her shoes squished with every step. The coffee shop was warm and nearly empty, just a barista wiping down tables at this late hour. Brielle guided the man to a corner booth and helped him sit down. Water dripped from both of them, pooling on the floor. "Can I get you something hot? Coffee? Tea?" she asked. "I don't know what I like," he said quietly, and there was such vulnerability in those words that Brielle had to swallow hard. "How about hot chocolate? Everyone likes hot chocolate." She ordered 2 cups with the last few dollars in her pocket, money she'd been saving for dinner during her shift. The barista, a young guy with purple hair, glanced at them curiously but didn't say anything. When she returned to the table, the man was staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. Brielle sat across from him and pushed 1 cup toward him. "Here, drink this. It'll help warm you up." He wrapped his hands around the cup, and she noticed they were shaking slightly. "Thank you," he said. "You didn't have to do this. Most people wouldn't have stopped." "Most people are missing out on the important part of being human," Brielle said simply. She studied him more carefully now, looking for any signs of injury. No visible bumps or bruises. His speech was clear, though hesitant. "Sir, I'm a nursing student. I think you might need medical attention. Can I call someone for you? Family? A doctor?" "I don't know," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "I feel like I should know, like the information is right there, but I can't reach it." He looked at her, and something flickered in his expression. "You remind me of someone. I can feel it, but I can't remember who." Brielle felt nervous for a moment but pushed it aside. "What's the last thing you do remember clearly?" The man closed his eyes, concentrating. "An office. Big windows overlooking water. A meeting about numbers. Finance, maybe? And then nothing. Just rain and not knowing where I was." "Do you remember what building? What area of the city?" "Downtown," he said slowly. "Near the waterfront, I think. Tall buildings." Brielle pulled out her own phone, checking the time. She was already 40 minutes late for her shift. She'd probably get written up again, maybe even fired. But she couldn't just leave this man. Something about him made her feel like she was exactly where she needed to be. She was about to suggest they call the police when the coffee shop door burst open. A woman in her 40s rushed in, her eyes scanning the room frantically. She wore a professional pantsuit and carried a designer bag. Her face was tight with worry. "Mr. Holloway," she exclaimed, rushing over to their table. "Oh my God. We've been looking everywhere for you. The entire security team has been searching for over an hour." The man looked up at her blankly. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" The woman's face went pale. "Sir, it's me. Regina, your executive assistant. I've worked for you for 12 years. Brielle stood up quickly. "He's experiencing memory loss. Significant disorientation. He needs to see a doctor immediately." Regina's hand went to her mouth. "The medication. Dr. Phillips warned this might happen with the new dosage." She pulled out her phone. "I'm calling his neurologist right now." "Neurologist?" Brielle asked. Regina hesitated, glancing at her employer. "Mr. Holloway has been receiving treatment for early-onset Alzheimer's. He had an appointment earlier today to adjust his medication. He must have wandered off after experiencing adverse effects." The man, Mr. Holloway, looked between them. "Alzheimer's," he repeated slowly. "That explains why I can't remember." "The car is outside," Regina said, already moving toward the door. "We need to get you to the hospital." "Wait," Mr. Holloway said, reaching out to stop Brielle as she started to step back. "You helped me. You gave me your umbrella. You bought me this drink. I don't even know your name." "Brielle," she said softly. "Brielle Costas." He repeated her name slowly, like he was trying to commit it to memory before it slipped away. Costas. That name. It means something. His brow furrowed again. I should know why. Regina gently touched his arm. Sir, we really need to go. How much do I owe you? He asked Brielle. For the chocolate. For your help? Nothing, Brielle said immediately. I'm just glad your assistant found you. Please go see your doctor. She gave me her umbrella, Mr. Holloway said to Regina, as if this fact was immensely important. In the rain. She was getting soaked, and she gave me her umbrella. Regina's expression softened as she looked at Brielle. That was very kind of you. May I have your contact information? Mr. Holloway will want to thank you properly when he's feeling better. Brielle hesitated. She didn't want anything in return. But the way Mr. Holloway looked at her made her uncomfortable. She pulled out a napkin and wrote down her number. As Regina guided Mr. Holloway toward the door, he turned back one more time. Costas, he said again. Brielle Costas. I won't forget. I promise I won't forget. And then they were gone, leaving Brielle standing in the coffee shop, completely drenched, very late for work, and with the strangest feeling that something had just happened. She looked down at the table. Mr. Holloway had left his cup of hot chocolate, barely touched. But next to it was something else. A business card. She picked it up with shaking hands. Micah Holloway, Chief Executive Officer, Holloway Capital Management. The address listed was one of the most prestigious buildings in Vancouver. She turned the card over and found Micah's contact information. Brielle tucked the card into her pocket without plans of reaching out and headed back out into the rain. Her umbrella was long gone, left with Mr. Holloway. She didn't mind. As she walked toward the bus stop, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just met someone important. Not because of his wealth or his company, but she couldn't explain why it unsettled her. When she finally arrived at the hospital 2 hours late, her supervisor was waiting with a written warning. It was her third strike. One more and she'd be fired. Brielle took the paperwork without complaint, changed into her uniform, and started her shift. She didn't tell anyone about the man in the rain. Somehow it felt like a secret that needed keeping, at least for now. 3 days passed. Brielle worked her shifts, attended her classes, and tried not to think about Micah Holloway or the strange look in his eyes. She'd Googled his name, of course. Who wouldn't? The search results had been overwhelming. Micah Holloway, billionaire investor. Micah Holloway, philanthropist. Micah Holloway's wife dies in tragic accident. Micah Holloway diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's at 56. The articles painted a picture of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd lost his wife of 20 years to a car accident 3 years ago, and who was now fighting a devastating ailment that threatened to erase everything he was. There were photos, too. Micah at charity galas, at board meetings, cutting ribbons at hospital wings that bore his name. In every picture, he looked commanding, confident, nothing like the lost man she'd found in the rain. She was walking home from her evening class when her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Brielle Costas? A woman's voice, professional and warm. Regina. Yes, this is she. This is Regina Morris, Mr. Holloway's assistant. I'm calling because Mr. Holloway would very much like to thank you in person for your help the other night. Would you be available to meet him for coffee tomorrow afternoon? Brielle's first instinct was to decline. She had class, then work, and besides, she'd just done what anyone should do. But something made her pause. That feeling again, the one that said this mattered. I have a break between 2 and 4, she heard herself say. Perfect. I'll send a car to pick you up. Where will you be? A car isn't necessary. I can take the bus. Mr. Holloway insists, Regina said gently. Please. It would make him very happy. Brielle found herself, the next afternoon, being picked up outside her university in a sleek black town car driven by a polite man in his 60s who introduced himself as Bernard. The drive took them to a quiet cafe in downtown Vancouver. Nothing fancy, just a neighborhood spot with good coffee and local art on the walls. Micah Holloway was already there, sitting at a window table. He looked different today. Put together, alert, more like the man in the photos. He stood when she approached, and she noticed he was tall, well over 6 feet. "Brielle," he said, and his smile was warm. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." She sat, feeling awkward in her worn jeans and university sweatshirt next to his expensive casual clothes. A server appeared immediately, and Micah ordered for both of them without looking at the menu. When the server left, he focused entirely on her. "I owe you an apology," he said, "and a significant thank you. Regina told me what happened, though I admit my memory of that evening is mostly fragments. The medication adjustment didn't go well." "Are you feeling better now?" Brielle asked. "Very much better. They found a balance that seems to work. Though I'm told these episodes will likely become more frequent as the disease progresses." He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity. "But that's not why I asked you here. I wanted to thank you properly for your kindness. Most people would have walked past a confused old man in the rain." "You're not old," Brielle said automatically. "And I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't." Micah leaned forward slightly. "Brielle Costas. When I heard your full name, when Regina told me, something clicked. Do you know what Costas means?" She shook her head. "It's Greek. It means constant, steadfast." He paused, studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Tell me about your family." The question surprised her. "There's not much to tell. It's just me and my mom. Has been my whole life." "Your father?" "Never knew him. He left before I was born." Micah's expression changed. Pain, recognition, she couldn't tell. "Your mother's name?" "Samantha. Samantha Costas." Brielle frowned. "Why are you asking me this?" Micah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. 23 years ago, I was a different person. Ambitious, ruthless, building my company at any cost. I was engaged to a woman named Helena, daughter of a business partner. It was an arrangement, not love, but it made strategic sense. Brielle wasn't sure why he was telling her this, but something about his tone made her stay quiet and listen. "That summer I met someone," he continued. "A hotel housekeeper named Samantha. She was beautiful, kind, real in a way no one in my world was. We had a brief relationship. 2 months of sneaking around, of me pretending I could have both worlds. And then Helena gave me an ultimatum. Her or Samantha. The merger or my heart." Brielle's own heart was starting to pound. "I chose wrong," Micah said quietly. "I chose the business, the merger, the life I thought I was supposed to have. I broke things off with Samantha badly, cruelly even. I paid her off, told her to leave Vancouver, and I never looked back. Or at least I tried not to." "Why are you telling me this?" Brielle whispered. What Micah showed her next will either answer every question Brielle's ever had about her father, or shatter the life her mother spent 22 years carefully building. Micah reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. It was old, creased, faded. He slid it across the table. Brielle picked it up with trembling hands. The photo showed a young man, maybe in his early 30s, handsome and confident. He had his arm around a young woman with dark curly hair and a bright smile. She was wearing a housekeeper's uniform. They were standing in front of a hotel Brielle recognized, the Fairmont Olympic, where her mother had worked for 20 years. "That's my mother," Brielle breathed. "I know," Micah said. His voice cracked. 3 months after I married Helena, I tried to find Samantha, to apologize, to make sure she was all right. But she'd left Vancouver, just like I'd paid her to do. I hired the police investigators to look for her, but she'd disappeared completely. I told myself it was for the best. And then life moved forward. Helena died 3 years ago. We had no children. And then came the diagnosis." He stopped, composing himself. "When you told me your name, when I heard Costas, something in my broken brain held onto it. The next day, when my mind was clearer, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had Regina do some research. Samantha Costas, former hotel housekeeper, returned to Vancouver 8 months after she left, with a baby daughter, Brielle. Born February 14th. Brielle's birthday. She felt like the room was tilting. I had a DNA test expedited. Micah continued. I took a sample from the coffee cup you drank from that night. I hope you'll forgive the invasion of privacy, but I had to know. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. The results came back this morning. Brielle stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Don't, she said. Please don't. You're my daughter, Micah said gently. The test is 99.9% conclusive. Brielle, you're my daughter. The cafe seemed to fade away. All Brielle could hear was her own heartbeat, loud and erratic. That's impossible. My mother would have told me. She wouldn't have kept that from me. Wouldn't she? Micah asked. I hurt her. I paid her to disappear. Maybe she wanted to protect you from a father who'd proven he valued money over love. Maybe she thought you were better off not knowing. Brielle stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need to go. This is insane. You're mistaken. Brielle, please. My mother is sick, she said, the words tumbling out. She has stage 4 breast cancer. She's been in treatment for 8 months. If what you're saying is true, she's had 22 years to tell me, and she chose not to. That tells me everything I need to know. She started toward the door, but Micah's voice stopped her. I'm dying too, he said quietly. The Alzheimer's is aggressive. Within 2 years, maybe 3, I won't remember my own name. I won't remember anything I built, anything I did. But before that happens, I'd like the chance to know my daughter. If you'll let me. Micah was standing now, and there were tears on his face. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I don't expect anything. But you gave me your umbrella in the rain. You helped a confused stranger. That kindness, that goodness, I'd like to think it came from Samantha. From your mother. And maybe, if you'll let me, I can spend whatever time I have left trying to be worthy of being your father. Brielle felt her own tears coming. I don't know you. I know. And maybe you'll decide you don't want to. But I'm asking for the chance. She looked at this man, this stranger, this billionaire who claimed to be her father. Part of her wanted to run. But another part, the part that had stopped in the rain to help, the part that Samantha had raised to see people's humanity before their circumstances, that part whispered that maybe running was the wrong choice. I need to talk to my mother first, she said. Micah nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. Regina has my contact information. If you decide you want to talk, I'll be here. Brielle left the cafe in a daze. Bernard was waiting with the car, but she waved him off and walked instead, needing the movement, needing to think. By the time she reached the small hospice facility where her mother was receiving care, it was evening. Samantha was in her room, looking fragile and small in the hospital bed. She'd lost so much weight. Her once vibrant dark curls were gone, replaced by a colorful headscarf. Baby girl, Samantha said, smiling when Brielle entered. What a wonderful surprise. Brielle sat in the chair beside the bed, taking her mother's thin hand. Mama, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Something in her tone made Samantha's smile fade. What's wrong? Is Micah Holloway my father? The silence that followed was answer enough. Samantha's face crumpled, and she closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears. How did you find out? She whispered. I helped him during a medical episode. He figured it out. Brielle felt her own tears spilling over. Mama, why didn't you ever tell me? Samantha tried to sit up, and Brielle helped her, adjusting the pillows. Oh, baby, I wanted to protect you. From what? From being disappointed, from being hurt, from knowing that your father chose money and status over us. Samantha's voice broke. He paid me $50,000 to leave Vancouver and never contact him again. He made it very clear that I was a mistake he wanted erased. But I had a right to know, Brielle said. All those years, all those times I asked about him, and you just said he was gone. He was gone, Samantha said firmly. The Micah Holloway who got me pregnant was a cruel, ambitious man who saw people as transactions. I didn't want you growing up knowing that your father had rejected you before you were even born. I wanted you to grow up knowing you were loved, wanted, cherished. But now he's sick, Mama. He has Alzheimer's. He says he wants to know me before it's too late. Samantha's expression softened. I heard about his diagnosis. I've kept track of him over the years, even though I never reached out. When his wife died, when he got sick, part of me felt vindicated, like karma had finally caught up. But mostly, I just felt sad. Do you hate him? No, baby. I did for a long time. But hate takes too much energy, and I needed all mine to raise you. Besides, he gave me you, and you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Samantha squeezed Brielle's hand. What do you want to do? I don't know, Brielle admitted. Part of me is so angry. At him for abandoning us. At you for not telling me. But another part, Mama, when I helped him in the rain before I knew who he was, I felt this connection. Like I knew him somehow. Samantha nodded slowly. You have his eyes. That same gray-blue. I saw it the moment you were born. And you have his stubbornness, his brilliance. But you have my heart, baby. That's all me. He wants a chance to know me before he loses his memory completely. And what do you want? Brielle thought about it. About the man in the rain, lost and vulnerable. About the businessman in the cafe, honest and raw. About the years of wondering who her father was, and now having the answer sitting in front of her, complicated and imperfect. I think, she said slowly, I want to know him too. Not because he's rich or because he can give me things, but because he's my father, and I've spent my whole life wondering. And maybe if I help him now when he needs it, it balances out him not being there when I needed him. Samantha pulled Brielle into a hug, as tight as her weakened body could manage. You have such a good heart, baby. So much better than either of us deserved. If you want to know him, then do it. Just promise me you'll protect yourself. Don't let him hurt you. I promise, Mama. That night, Brielle called the number on Micah's business card. Regina answered. I'd like to see him again, Brielle said. But on my terms this time. Somewhere normal. No fancy cars or cafes. Where would you like to meet? Brielle thought for a moment. There's a park near the university. Volunteer park. Can he meet me there tomorrow afternoon? Around 3. I'll make sure he's there. The next day was Sunday, and Volunteer Park was busy with families and joggers. Brielle sat on a bench near the conservatory, watching the water tower in the distance. She'd arrived early, needing time to prepare herself. Micah appeared at exactly 3, walking slowly across the grass. He was alone. No Regina. No security. Just a man in jeans and a sweater looking uncertain. He sat on the bench beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. Thank you for seeing me again, he said. I talked to my mother, Brielle said without preamble. She confirmed everything. And she told me things about you I wish I didn't know. Micah nodded. I imagine she did. I wasn't a good person back then, Brielle. I was selfish and cruel, and I hurt her badly. Why did you do it? Why did you pay her off? Because I was a coward, he said simply. I was too afraid to choose love over ambition. I thought building an empire mattered more than building a family. And by the time I realized I was wrong, it was too late. Helena and I tried to have children, but it never happened. The doctors said it was me. Infertility. The irony was crushing. I'd rejected the one child I did have for a future that never came. I don't know how to do this, Brielle said finally. I don't know how to have a father, especially one who's going to forget who I am. I don't know how to be a father either, Micah admitted, especially with so little time. But maybe we don't need to have all the answers. Maybe we just start small. Get to know each other while we can. My mother is dying, Brielle said. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors say she has maybe 6 months. And you're dying too in a different way. It feels like I'm just finding you both. And I'm going to lose you both. Micah's hand moved across the bench, stopping just short of hers. Then maybe we make the most of the time we have. All 3 of us. Brielle looked at him, straight into his eyes, past the expensive clothes and the business empire. She saw a man who'd made terrible mistakes and was trying, however imperfectly, to make amends. She saw regret and hope and fear all mixed together. She took his hand. "Small steps," she said. "Small steps," he agreed. And so began the strangest, most bittersweet chapter of Brielle's life. She met with Micah twice a week, always in ordinary places. They had coffee at diners, walked through the Pike Place market, sat in parks. He asked about her life, her studies, her dreams. She asked about his work, his late wife, his childhood. They were two strangers learning to be family, racing against the clock of two different terminal diagnoses. Micah met Samantha a month later. Brielle had been nervous about that meeting, unsure how her mother would react to seeing the man who'd hurt her so long ago. They met at the hospice, in the garden where Samantha liked to sit when the weather was good. Brielle watched as Micah approached her mother's wheelchair, his face filled with decades of regret. "Hello, Samantha," he said quietly. "Hello, Micah," Samantha replied. Her voice was neutral but not cold. "I owe you an apology that's 23 years late," he said. "What I did to you, how I treated you, it was unforgivable. I let you raise our daughter alone while I built an empire that means nothing now. You did all the hard work, all the sacrifice, and I get to show up at the end and pretend I deserve to be called her father." "You don't," Samantha said bluntly. "Deserve it, I mean. But Brielle has always been her own person, and if she wants to know you, that's her choice." "She's remarkable," Micah said. "Brilliant and kind and strong. That's all you. Everything good in her came from you." Samantha looked him for a long moment. "You've changed. Or maybe you were always capable of this, and you just chose not to be." "I've had a lot of time to think," Micah said, "about what matters, about what I wasted my life chasing. And then I found myself lost in the rain, and a stranger with your daughter's face and your kind heart helped me. Even before I knew who she was, I felt it. That connection." "She felt it too," Samantha admitted. "She came to me so confused, talking about this man she'd helped, how she couldn't stop thinking about him. And then when you told her the truth, it all made sense." "I don't have long," Micah said. "The disease is progressing. Some days are better than others, but I'm losing ground. Before I lose myself completely, I want to do right by both of you. Let me help with the medical bills. Let me set up a trust for Brielle's future. Let me do something meaningful with the money I chose over love." Samantha shook her head. "I don't want your money, Micah. I never did. The $50,000 you gave me? I put it in an account for Brielle's education. It's how she's paying for nursing school." Micah looked stunned. "You kept it for her? It was the only thing you ever gave her. It seemed right that it should help her build her future." He sank down onto a bench, his composure cracking. "You're a better person than I ever deserved to know." "Yes," Samantha agreed. "But I'm also dying, and I've learned that holding grudges is a waste of the time I have left. You want to make amends? Then be there for our daughter after I'm gone. She's going to need someone." Micah looked up, tears streaming down his face. "What if I can't remember her? What if I'm too far gone?" "Then love her while you can remember," Samantha said simply. "And trust that even when your mind is gone, your heart might hold onto what matters." From that day forward, the three of them existed in a strange, fragile triangle. Micah began paying for Samantha's hospice care, upgrading her to a private room with a view of the water. He visited regularly, and slowly, tentatively, he and Samantha rebuilt something that wasn't quite friendship but wasn't quite forgiveness either. It was understanding, acceptance of the past, and appreciation for the present. If you're already questioning whether some absences can ever be forgiven, you need to see what happens next. Hit subscribe because this story is about to challenge everything you thought you knew about second chances. For Brielle, it was overwhelming and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. She was watching both her parents fade in different ways while simultaneously getting to know them better than she ever had. Micah showed her his company, introduced her to the business he'd built, not because he wanted her to take over, but because he wanted her to understand who he'd been. Samantha told stories about her pregnancy, about Brielle's childhood, filling in gaps that Micah had missed. 4 months into their reunion, Micah had his first major episode in front of Brielle. They were at a museum, looking at the Impressionist collection, when he suddenly turned to her with complete confusion in his eyes. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I seem to have lost my daughter. Have you seen a young woman? Dark hair? Kind eyes?" Brielle felt her heart break. "I'm your daughter, Dad. I'm right here." He looked at her, squinting, trying to make his brain cooperate. And then, slowly, recognition returned. "Brielle. God, I'm sorry. I was here, and then I wasn't, and I couldn't remember." "It's okay," she said, taking his arm. "I've got you." But it wasn't okay. They both knew it would only get worse. Micah is losing his mind, but he's about to do something that will make sure Brielle never loses him. What he's planning will either be the most beautiful gift or the cruelest reminder of what time is stealing from them both. 6 months after their first meeting, Samantha passed away peacefully in her sleep. Brielle had been there, holding her hand, and so had Micah. In those final hours, Samantha had looked at them both. "Take care of each other," she'd whispered. "You're all the other has left." The funeral was small, just Brielle, Micah, and a few of Samantha's friends from the hotel where she'd worked. Micah paid for everything, but more importantly, he stood beside Brielle as she grieved, offering the quiet support of simply being there. A week after the funeral, Regina called Brielle with an urgent message. Micah had had another episode, more severe this time. He was at the hospital, stable but confused. Would she come? Brielle rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding. She found Micah in a private room, Regina sitting beside him. When Brielle entered, Micah's face lit up with recognition, but there was something different in his eyes. "There you are," he said. "I've been waiting for you." "I came as fast as I could," Brielle said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Regina says I'm getting worse, that I need to go into a facility soon, somewhere they can take care of me when I can't take care of myself." He took her hand. "But before that happens, I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "I've rewritten my will. Everything goes to you. The company, the properties, the investments, all of it. Regina and my lawyers will help you manage it." "Dad, no. I don't want your money." "I know you don't. That's exactly why I'm giving it to you. Because you'll use it the right way. Your mother taught you that. She taught you that wealth is meaningless unless it helps people." He squeezed her hand. "I'm also establishing something. A scholarship fund specifically for children who are growing up without fathers. Full-ride scholarships, tuition, books, housing, everything. They don't have to work 3 jobs like you did, so they can focus on their education and their dreams. This decision will define how Brielle remembers her father for the rest of her life. Not his billions, not his empire, but this one choice that proves he finally understood what a father should be." Brielle felt tears streaming down her face. "Dad, I can't give back the 22 years I wasn't there for you. I can't undo the struggle you and your mother went through. But I can make sure other children don't have to carry that same burden. Children who are brilliant and deserving but don't have a father's support." His voice cracked. "I want to be the father I never was, even if it's for children I'll never meet. I'm calling it the Brielle Costas Education Fund. Not my name. Yours. Because you're the one who survived without a father and still became extraordinary. You're the proof that these kids can make it, and I want them to know your story. To know that absence doesn't define them. Even when I can't remember you, this will continue. Other kids will get the chance I denied you. The chance to just be students, to just be young, without the weight of financial survival crushing them." Brielle couldn't speak. She just held his hand tighter. Micah pulled her into a hug, and they stayed like that for a long time, father and daughter, holding on to each other as the future they'd barely begun slipped away. Micah moved into a specialized memory care facility 3 weeks later. Brielle visited every day, reading to him, showing him photos, reminding him of their too brief time together. Some days he knew her. Some days she was a kind stranger. Some days he thought she was Samantha. On those days, she didn't correct him. She just held his hand and let him talk about the woman he'd loved and lost, the daughter he'd finally found. A year after they'd met in the rain, Brielle graduated from nursing school. She wore her mother's favorite scarf under her graduation gown. Micah was there, in a wheelchair, Regina pushing him. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but when Brielle walked across the stage, he clapped and smiled. After the ceremony, she wheeled him to a quiet corner of the campus. "Dad," she said gently, "I graduated. I'm a nurse now." He looked at her with those gray-blue eyes, and for a moment, there was clarity. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. Then the clarity faded, replaced by confusion. "Do I know you?" "Yes," Brielle said, smiling through her tears. "You know me better than almost anyone." "That's nice," he said, sounding pleased. "You have kind eyes." 2 years after that rainy November night, Micah Holloway passed away after a heavy seizure attack. By then, he'd forgotten his own name, forgotten his empire, forgotten everything except the feeling of safety when Brielle was near. At the funeral, hundreds of people came. Business leaders, politicians, people whose lives he'd touched through his philanthropy. But Brielle knew that in the end, what he'd wanted most was simply to be her father. This story isn't over. What Micah left behind will prove that even death can't erase love when it's documented the right way. Subscribe now because what comes next will change how you think about legacy forever. After the funeral, Regina approached Brielle with an envelope. "He wrote this during one of his clear moments about 6 months ago," Regina said. "He made me promise to give it to you after he was gone." Brielle opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest Brielle, if you're reading this, I'm gone. My mind went first, but hopefully my heart held on long enough to remember what mattered. I don't know if I believed in fate before I met you, but I believe in it now. The fact that you, my daughter, were the one who found me when I was lost seems like more than coincidence. It seems like the universe giving me one last chance to get something right. Your mother raised you to be extraordinary, kind, brilliant, compassionate. Everything I wasn't when I was young. I spent my life building an empire, and it meant nothing. You spent your life helping others, and you built something far more valuable. Purpose. The money I'm leaving you comes with no strings, no expectations. Use it however you want, but I hope you'll use it to keep being who you are, to keep stopping for strangers in the rain, to keep seeing people's humanity before their circumstances. I wasn't there for your first word, your first step, your first day of school. I missed all the moments that make someone a father. But I was there at the end and you loved me anyway. You gave me grace I didn't deserve. That's a gift I'll carry into whatever comes next. Thank you for your umbrella. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for being my daughter. I love you. Even when I couldn't remember your name, I loved you, Dad." Brielle folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her purse. Around her, people were sharing stories about Micah the businessman, Micah the philanthropist, Micah the genius investor. But she knew a different truth. Micah Holloway hadn't been perfect. He'd made terrible choices, hurt people, spent most of his life chasing the wrong things. But at the end, he'd chosen love. He'd chosen connection. He'd chosen to be a father, however briefly, however imperfectly. And that was enough. One yellow umbrella, one rainy night, one choice to help a stranger, and everything changed. But the real question isn't what Brielle gained. It's what she's about to do with it. 3 years later, the Samantha and Brielle Costas Education Fund had awarded over 100 scholarships, funded hospice care for thousands of families, and contributed millions to Alzheimer's and cancer research. Brielle had become a pediatric nurse, working at Vancouver Children's Hospital, using her inheritance to support her work but never letting it define her. She still carried the business card Micah had left in that coffee shop the first day they met. She still had her mother's favorite scarf. And she still had that battered yellow umbrella, preserved in a shadow box in her apartment. Sometimes, when it rained, she'd stand at her window and remember. The man in the rain, the father she'd found and lost, the mother who'd raised her to be kind. The brief, beautiful moment when all three of them had been together. She'd learned that family wasn't just about blood or time. It was about showing up, about helping without expectation, about loving imperfect people perfectly. She'd given her umbrella to a stranger in the rain and found her father. And in doing so, she'd discovered that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the simplest acts of kindness. that love can bloom even in the briefest season, and that it's never too late to come home. If Brielle's story made you think about the parent, family, or relative you never knew, the one you lost, or the forgiveness you're still deciding whether to give, leave a comment. Tell us, would you have given Micah a second chance? Or are some absences too deep to forgive? And if you believe that kindness, even to strangers who don't deserve it, can change everything, we tell stories about people who choose grace when the world says they've earned the right to choose anger. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's build a community of people who believe it's never too late to come home.